Coming up on this Thursday edition of Daybreak, China says it will expand its air defense zone further to include the South China Sea. This comes after the US flies 2 B-52 bombers over the East China Sea in clear defiance of Beijing's recent airspace claims. In a move to beef up its aerial surveillance, the South Korean Air Force says it will deploy the nation's first homegrown low-altitude surveillance radars for the first time from 2015. Plus, Panama says it will release most of the crew on a North Korean vessel seized in July for carrying Cuban arms. Only 3 members of the 35-man crew will be charged with arms trafficking. Daybreak begins now.
Thanks for tuning in. You're watching Daybreak on Thursday, November 28th. Live from Seoul, I'm Kim Yeon-ji. We start with the latest development in the fight for airspace in East Asia. Just days after announcing its establishment of a new air defense zone over the East China Sea, Beijing on Wednesday laid out plans for a similar zone over the South China Sea. China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs says Beijing will push forth with its new plans once ready, despite criticism from the US, Japan, and Korea for its claims in the East China Sea. Japan has continued to say that it does not acknowledge China's demarcations, while the U.S. directly challenged China's air defense zone in the East China Sea by flying warplanes through the area without notifying Beijing. Korean Foreign Ministry officials are set to meet with Chinese officials in Seoul on this Thursday to discuss this issue. As tensions escalate in Northeast Asia, South Korea has expressed concerns over an apparent power grab by China and the U.S. in the region. Our Hwang Sung-hee reports.
Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se says China's new air defense zone that overlaps with those of Korea and Japan will further complicate conflicts in Northeast Asia. In his keynote speech at a forum on Wednesday, Korea's top diplomat said that the issue has made an already tense regional environment even tenser and noted that competition and conflict among regional players is growing. In an apparent act of defiance against Beijing's latest declaration and in a show of support for its ally Japan, the U.S. military said Tuesday that it flew 2 Air Force B-52 bombers over disputed islands in the East China Sea on Monday without announcing themselves. When China set up its new air defense zone last week, it insisted that it be informed if any nation planned to fly military aircraft through it. The zone overlaps with one set by Japan and covers disputed islands that are controlled by Japan. It also partly overlaps with that of Korea's, including aerial space above Yeodo, a submerged rock mass lying on the two countries' overlapping exclusive economic zones in the East China Sea. China's defense ministry said it was monitoring the entire flight path of the U.S. bombers as they flew through the zone on Monday, although a Pentagon spokesman said the planes were neither observed nor contacted. Beijing's announcement came amid a growing territorial dispute with Japan over the islands in the East China Sea, known as Diaoyu in China and Senkaku in Japan. Analysts say the flight sent a clear sign of Washington's support for Japan and represented an act of defiance against what it considers to be Beijing's aggressive stance in the region. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
China's assertion of greater military control in the region has prompted the South Korean Air Force to beef up surveillance and fighter jet operation capabilities. Here is Arirang News' Defense Ministry correspondent Han Daeun with the details on what's at stake and how much it costs.
The South Korean Air Force will deploy homegrown, low-altitude surveillance radars for the first time from 2015. Korea's Defense Acquisition Program Administration announced Wednesday that it had sealed a deal with a group of the nation's top weapons makers, led by LIG Next One, and already began the process of mass production. The low-altitude radar can detect a target more than 100 kilometers away in air and provide necessary information to Korea's Master Control and Reporting Center. More than $31 million were pumped into the radar project over 5 years. This marks the first time an aerial surveillance radar has been fully developed using homegrown technology. The Defense Acquisition Agency plans to replace all existing aerial surveillance radars on the Korean peninsula with indigenous ones based on the success of this project. The Air Force will also purchase 4 units of aerial tankers from overseas in efforts to beef up the nation's air defenses. After holding a meeting presided over by Defense Minister Kim Yeon-ji on Wednesday, the Defense Acquisition Agency announced it'll launch bids from January 2014 and select the most suitable contender within 1 year through product evaluations. Defense Acquisition Agency spokesman Baek Yoon-hyung says the aerial tankers, once deployed, will bolster combat capabilities by extending the operation times of fighter jets flying long distances, including to areas near Dokdo and Yeodo, by more than 1 hour. It'll also allow for the loading additional weaponry instead of fuel. Currently, Korea's most advanced fighter jet, the F-15K, can operate for 30 minutes over Dokdo and for 20 minutes over Yeodo. Up to $942 million have been set aside to procure the 4 aerial tankers that'll be deployed from 2017 to 2019. Boeing and Airbus Military have been handpicked as the 2 top contenders. 한다은 Arirang News.
The North Korean vessel seized in Panama for carrying illegal arms is set to be released, along with most of the crew members. A Panamanian prosecutor said on Wednesday that 32 of the 35 crew members will be released because they did not know about the illegal cargo on the ship. 3 of the crew members, including the captain, will face charges of arms trafficking. Panamanian official says the ship Cheongcheon-gang is free to go, but only after North Korea pays $1 million fine. This is because the ship's crew threatened the Panama Canal security by not declaring it was transporting weapons. The ship, seized in July, was heading to North Korea from Cuba and was found to be carrying military equipment under a load of sugar. A flurry of diplomatic efforts to resume the long-stalled 6-party talks on denuclearizing North Korea is currently taking place behind the scenes. But not everybody is yet on the same page. Sources in the U.S. say the opening up of Pyongyang's nuclear and missile programs to independent verification is one of the key preconditions to getting everyone around the table again. Kim Yeon-ji has more.
North Korea's uranium enrichment and its long-range missile program topped the agenda at recent talks between regional powers as they tried to find a way to resume the long-stalled 6-party talks. Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se said Wednesday that the multilateral talks are a good foundation for which to work, but also stressed that enhancing bilateral efforts should be taken into consideration as well. Diplomatic sources in Washington on Tuesday said that North Korea would have to freeze its nuclear program and ballistic missile capabilities before the talks, which include the 2 Koreas, the U.S., China, Japan, and Russia, can resume. The talks are aimed at denuclearizing Pyongyang in return for the removal of sanctions and international support. The sources say China is centered on coming up with compromise proposals after the resumption of the talks, and not necessarily on the preconditions. This comes as Pyongyang's state-run Korean Central News Agency reported on Tuesday that a North Korean Foreign Ministry spokesman had accused the U.S. of demanding absurd preconditions, and said Washington had no intention of coming back to the negotiating table. Another sticking point is that the U.S. and its allies say they need more information about Pyongyang's uranium enrichment program capabilities, as very few details are available. Unlike plutonium, which can only be made in a nuclear power plant, uranium can be processed with a simple centrifuge, which can be based almost anywhere. A new report by the Council of Foreign Relations, led by North Korea expert Scott Snyder, says that if Pyongyang resumes its nuclear program, it will forfeit over $100 billion in lost economic opportunities over the next several years. The report pointed out that Pyongyang needs outside help to boost its ailing economy. Kim Yeon-ji, Arirang News.
Some positive news on the economic front. The Bank of Korea said in a report on Wednesday that the nation's economy grew in October and November compared to the third quarter on the back of improved exports and slight increases in consumption and facility investment. Growth in the manufacturing, IT, auto, and shipbuilding sectors saw the biggest gains. However, concerns still loom. The central bank report, which assesses regional economic conditions in 16 areas, said local exporters continue to worry about losing their competitiveness in emerging markets. One of the nation's nuclear reactors went offline early this Thursday morning due to a possible malfunction with the reactor's turbines. Officials say Unit 1 of the Kori reactor in the southern port city of Busan stopped at 1:18 a.m. Korea time. This comes just a day after Korea's largest electric utility has warned that the nation is staring at the possibility of power shortages this winter. Korea Electric Power Corporation said Wednesday that it expects demand to reach around 81 million kilowatts in mid-January, which will pose a problem as 6 nuclear reactors are currently offline due to malfunctions or routine maintenance. Korea relies on the 23 nuclear reactors to supply about 30% of the nation's total electricity. Now taking you to Korea's resort island of Jeju. Amid Korea's drive to boost its appeal to tourists, the annual number of visitors there is expected to surpass 10 million this year. The Jeju provincial government says the number of tourists had reached 9.97 million as of Tuesday, up more than 10% from the same period last year. Other resort islands such as Hawaii, Bali, and Okinawa have yet to top the 10 million mark. If the current trend continues, Jeju's provincial government says it will be able to achieve its goal of attracting 10.5 million tourists this year, with an expected annual gross revenue from tourism of more than $6 billion. Fostering regional development in the nation from the bottom up. There was the goal President Park Geun-hye laid out on Wednesday during a visit to a government-organized regional development fair in Busan. Whereas past administrations promoted a top-down approach to regional development that started at the central government, President Park made the case for giving local governments and residents central roles. She said each region should focus on its strengths and use that as a basis from which to work. The president also vowed to promote policies that meet the needs of the people in order to improve their standard of living. Greek President Kyrios Papoulias will make a 4-day state visit to Korea from next Monday. It will mark the first time a Greek president has ever made an official trip to Korea. President Park Geun-hye is scheduled to hold talks with Papoulias on ways to expand cooperation in the sectors of trade, investment, shipbuilding, and infrastructure. She is also expected to seek support from the Greek government for her North Korea policies, such as a trust-building process with the rogue state and setting up a multilateral dialogue channel in Northeast Asia. Korea is on its way to setting up a new anti-corruption bureau to replace the Central Investigation Department that was shut down earlier this year. The Bureau's creation is part of a larger bill on reforming the prosecution that was passed during a cabinet meeting on Tuesday. The Central Investigation Department, which had the highest investigative authority within the prosecution, had long been criticized for its political bias and a tendency to side with high-ranking officials in major corruption cases. Under the bill, those cases will be overseen by the new bureau, which will be deprived of direct investigative authority, but will manage and support special investigations.
If you want the latest news from Korea and around the world.
Return to the negotiation.
President Park Geun-hye plans, given the current circumstances.
On your way to work or at home.
Defense Ministry.
The legislature will convene a...
Tune into Daybreak on Arirang TV.
Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said Tuesday.
Mass protests in Thailand are into their 4th straight day now, with thousands taking to the streets of Bangkok on Wednesday to demonstrate against Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawat's administration. Protesters continue to occupy the Finance Ministry building, which they took control of on Monday. They have since surrounded other government buildings in the capital, including the Department of Special Investigations. Shinawat faces a no-confidence vote in parliament on Thursday as the opposition tries to unseat her government through legal means. But watchers say the chances of that happening are slim since her party maintains a majority. Hundreds of people attended a memorial service in Brisbane on Wednesday for a female South Korean student who was murdered in the city last weekend. 22-year-old victim Pan Eun-ji arrived in Australia just 6 weeks ago as a participant of a youth exchange program. Pan was heading to her part-time cleaning job in the early hours of Sunday morning when she was attacked and beaten to death by a 19-year-old male suspect. Brisbane's Lord Mayor Graham Quirk attended the mourning, along with Pan's friends and members of Korean community in the city. Australia's Premier Campbell Newman also offered his condolences to the victim's family. Well, even the most experienced drivers can have problems parking their cars in tight spaces. But now, Korean researchers have figured out a way to park cars using nothing but a smartphone. Our Kim Yeon-ji reports.
This car is trying to fit into a parking space, but after several attempts, the driver gives up. Soon, however, this will no longer be a problem for drivers who have trouble parking. The Korea Electronics and Telecommunications Research Institute has developed a new parking technology that allows drivers to park their cars automatically anywhere at any time with just a simple touch of their smartphone.
It uses camera sensors that act like the eyes of a person. It can look out for objects or cars in the way.
Whenever you're out of time or at a venue with a large parking lot, the car can also find a parking space all by itself. Later, it will send an image of where it parked to your smartphone. This is possible through a camera and ultrasonic sensors attached to the car and sensors installed in the parking lot in advance. The technology is expected to be ready for commercialization by 2018 and is thought to cost around $1,900. It is expected to save billions of dollars in social costs, such as car accidents each year, as well as about 75,000 liters of petroleum annually.
This technology is still very new worldwide, so I believe it is suitable for commercialization.
In combination with cars and roadway infrastructure based on smart technology, this new parking technology is expected to bring another science fiction fixture into our everyday lives. Kim Yeon-ji, Arirang News.
And a good Thursday morning to you all as we kick things off in the KBO. Now, in the latest series of Tucson Bears reshuffle, no one expected this next news to happen. In fact, many of the coaches and players were caught off guard when the Tucson Bears decided to fire manager Kim Jin-wook. Now, on Wednesday, Tucson Bears president Kim Seung-young personally gave manager Kim Jin-wook the notice, stating that he will not return next year. The team's PR rep added that it was his poor decision-making as a manager that led to the decision as they promoted their Futures League manager Song Il-soo. Now, Song, a 63-year-old Korean-Japanese coach, is known for his offensive managing and should be a good fit according to many experts. Meanwhile, the news came while the Tucson Bears were training in Miyazaki, Japan. Moving on to some midweek K-League Classic action as Gangwon FC and Daegu FC drew 2-2 with Suwon beating Jeonbuk 1-0. Also, Gyeongnam FC and Daejeon drew 1-1 and Seongnam pulled away with a 1-0 win over Jeonnam. So with that said, let's take a look at a few big matches that took place as well. Starting off with FC Seoul taking on Pohang Steelers. Of course, going into the game here, both teams know for their offense, and the first goal of the match comes in the 12th minute as Kim Seung-dae drills one past the goalkeeper on a rebound, and Pohang is up 1-0. 21st minute, a foul is called on the penalty area, and FC Seoul has a chance to tie it up. Daeyeon takes the spot kick and converts it 1-1. Just 5 minutes to this, it's No Byung-jun with a brilliant goal here, and Pohang is back up 2-1. Stays that way going into the second half of the match, but in the 74th minute, here's an insurance goal from No Byung-jun, his second goal of the match, and Pohang takes this match 3-1 as their title hopes remain alive. And moving on, Ulsan Hyundai Tigers taking on Busan I-Park 21st minute. Here's Rafinha, and he scores 1-0 Ulsan. Ulsan taking this lead going into the second half of the match until Lee Jung-ho sends one past the goalkeeper, and that's the equalizer. Ulsan trying to pull at least a draw in this match, but Jose Fagner says, no way, Jose. 89th minute goal gives Busan the thrilling win here, 2-1, your final score. And moving on to some Wednesday night's KBL action, Ulsan Mobis Phoebus took on the Goyang Orions. So let's take a look at the highlights from Ulsan. We go over to the game here. First quarter of the game, 6 different Orions players scoring in the quarter as they take a 19-15 lead going into the second quarter. But Mobis bounces back in the second quarter as they tie it up 39-39 going into halftime. Third quarter of the game, Mobis lighting it up, outscoring Goyang 30-17. Mobis never looking back in this game as Moon Tae-young puts up 22 points and 13 rebounds as Mobis crushes the Orions 91-70. Next up, we go over to the VLeague where Hyundai Hillstate rallied back to beat Daejeon KGC 3-2 over on the women's side. Meanwhile, Samsung Hwajae Bluefangs took on the struggling KEPCO Vicstorm, so let's take a look at the highlights. Of course, in the first set of the game, Samsung cruises through as they penetrate KEPCO's defense 25-19 before taking the second set as well, 25-23. Then the third set, KEPCO looking like a different team here as they take the third set 25-21 to force a fourth set. Meanwhile, Leo Martinez struggling in this game but still manages 21 attack points on the night, with Lee Sung-gyu putting up 5 blocks as Samsung takes the fourth set 25-14 and a 3-1 victory. And finishing things off in the UFC as 30-year-old Pang Tae-hyun becomes the 7th Korean UFC fighter after signing with the company. Of course, with Yang Dong-hee no longer in the UFC, there are now 6 Korean fighters as he's set to fight in the lightweight division with his debut fight set to take place in January. So, best of luck to him, and that is going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning, I'm Lee Ji-hyun with your latest weather forecast. Well, it feels a lot more like January this morning. Temperatures plunged overnight as the mercury levels are starting out in the negative side area-wide. I mean, even Busan is starting off at -1 this morning, and today's highs won't offer much of a thaw today. And unlike we expected, the capital didn't receive much of snow yesterday, but today the west coast will see snowfall of up to 10 centimeters, while the southern regions might receive lingering sleets during the day. But it's gonna be a snow-free day for the capital, and even we'll get to see some periods of the sun today. Well, a warm-up is gradually heading out way. Chilly temperatures will start to ease up tomorrow afternoon. So Saturday and Sunday, we can expect much milder condition. So plan ahead for outdoor activities. But not today. It's going to be a freezing day. So how cold will it get? Let's take a look. The morning lows in Seoul drop to -5 and will climb up to 0. And even Daegu starts out at -3, but rise to 3 later on. And Gwangju and Busan will also have cold morning low at -2 and -1, but we'll see a high of 4 and 6 respectively. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju will only soar to 6 in the afternoon with a chance of sleet. Daejeon and Dokdo will also wake up to freezing morning low at -5 and -3, and more freezed weather is in store for Mount Kumgang. Well, it will feel a lot colder than the actual numbers with strong gusty winds, so please bundle up tight before heading out today. Now that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world. That's all for me today or at this hour, and hope you have a wonderful day.
Those are the stories we have for you at this hour. Stay tuned to Arirang for more of the day's latest. Thank you for watching.